Good afternoon and welcome all to the NTT-Netmagic webinar. Our topic for today is Data Center, the new demand landscape. We thank you all for making the time to attend the same. You can post your questions in the Q&A box throughout the session and we would address the same post that. Our speakers for today are Abhinav Jory, Director and Practice Head, Technology and Digital Consulting in E&Y India, and Seema Ambastha, Senior Executive Vice President, India and Global Business at NTT-Netmagic. We thank you once again for your time. Over to you, Abhinav.
Thank you very much, Rahul, and thanks for the opportunity. Very nice to be speaking with you all, and good afternoon. In a brevity about my own self, my name is Abhinav, and I've been with EY for about 14 plus years now, and particularly have been having a pleasure of serving my clients on the technology related matters. And in most of the times, I still remember speaking to my CIO or CTO clients where infrastructure used to be the one of the most important conversation, especially around the budgeting year. And I was used to be called upon, and we used to start thinking about what's new, what's going to be refreshing, and then it slowly started talking about the cloud. Fast forward, I think a lot has been seen, and well, I'm assuming that most of us who are there today in this session are supremely entrenched into data center infrastructure, cloud, and all what we've been hearing from past at least 5 on years very, very deeply. What I intend to do is being very respectful of your time. I would keep my talk for about 10 to 12 minutes. And within these 10 to 12 minutes, I would like to at least share with you what kind of questions, what kind of, or what nature of demand we have been hearing from our clients from variety of sectors, right from the core to non-core sectors, especially in the infrastructure and data centers. B, what kind of influences we have seen in past 1 year, which has pretty much skewed the decision making whenever it has come to data centers and ancillary decision points. And lastly, what do we expect to, especially given the COVID-19 and let's say post COVID-19 or during COVID-19 is going to stay for a while. What kind of impact, upside and downside, we are seeing both. So, so I think more and more from past 1.5 year, what we have noticed with the clients, especially in three sectors, and let me divide these three sectors into certain categories. One is about all the technology companies, the large Indian IT services organization. Second are the mid-market companies, let's say the organizations who are within 1,000, 2,000 crore kind of a revenue. And third is the platform businesses. We all understand that that could be your right from the growth stage Flipkarts to C series, D series, Swiggy's and Zomato's, to the very, very recent one like let's say Bounce or many other small time platform businesses. So we see at least the demand coming from these three categories, the questions coming from these categories have a certain flavor to it. The established organizations, while they have been heavy consumers of private cloud and also public cloud, they were very, very extensively heavy on their virtualization, so much so that most of them claim to have about 95 to 96% of the virtualization achieved. For the past 1 year, as all of them face the cost pressures, especially reducing gross margins on the business side, one of the area which has become the specific target to take out the cost is the technology. And the way we see is that the same technology budget which used to be consumed in buying more is now being reshuffled into keeping the lights on and putting more and more, let's say, into growth and innovation. So keeping the lights on, we all understand. You keep your maintenance up, keep your vendors engaged. But innovation and growth has further taken different meanings depending upon the demand has come internally or demand has come as a push from the business basis what they're hearing from their own clients. As far as the demand from the internal is concerned, the idea is making all these IT companies and especially the mid-market companies more from the legacy to the modernized infrastructure and the modernized applications as well. And in doing so, these organizations, while they have been extremely matured on the cloud, on the infrastructure space, their adoption on the software and also on the platform as a topic has been fairly recent. And that's the area where many of the big players, big IT services companies are investing a lot, wherein they can provide as a service or as a one single window concept to most of their internal technology demands. One of the very interesting point which came across from many of these companies very recently, and I'm talking about Jan 2020 to Feb 2020, is that can they envisage to build their own data centers, which is say private and virtualized in nature, but still continue to use the public data centers for the compute and for the processing power they need to offer. And while this could be a mix, and we can call this as a hybrid in some shape and form, but the idea is that you continue to have such a hybrid model, but you use the same public data center, compute, and storage to build your platforms and to host more and more vendors on the top of it so that it becomes your one single window to the enterprises instead of having multiple enterprise applications. If I take this conversation to mid-market companies, the interesting part, what we see over there, that fortunately, unfortunately, and this may sound to be very known to you, for them somehow the time has not moved on. The concerns around security, the concerns around confidentiality, data, etc., are still so real as they used to be maybe 10 years back. Now, thanks to, pardon my parlance, but thanks to this whole idea of COVID-19 and pushing your employees to work from home or from remote connectivity, at least the mid-market companies have come out of a perception that if they do not bring in the change effectively, especially on the edge, on the network, and on the servers, whereby they do not completely depend upon their own team members or own staff and their availability physically, the sudden push to go back and start talking to multiple data center providers has become a reality. In fact, in one of my conversations very recently, about 2.5 months back, the moment nation announced its first lockdown, one of the CIO asked me a question that I wish we have had this conversation on thinking about public data center and the cloud maybe in 2017, because now they have so much to catch up and so much to justify in terms of the cost, which is the sunk cost as well in many shape and form, that he fears that either he would be losing out his own IT organization because he stands at a risk of being completely outsourced, or B, not enjoying a very healthy relationship with the vendor partners in the wider market who would be able to give him a very sweet deal given the situation we are in. Last category I did speak about was the platform businesses, and we all understand that normally many of our platform or e-commerce businesses are digital native, so their journey pretty much starts within the cloud. However, if I were to speak about very advanced and very complex platform businesses who are specifically into shared mobility like Ola or Uber, or who are into very strategic deployments of IoT-based use cases, wherein they are infusing the data into the automobile products or the manufacturing products or core industrial products. The problem there is twofold. One, they are so good in doing what they were doing that their technology acumen is pretty weak, and most of the time is dependent upon what the suppliers tell them. And what we have seen is that there's a surge of hiring many CIOs and CTOs who specifically do not necessarily come from a product background, but they specifically come from the infrastructure as a background because they want to use their own products but infused with digital, which simply means that the amount of data being generated would be far beyond imagination. And in order to process those data and make their products insightful, more smarter, they would need a high amount of compute and storage and processing capabilities. One such quick example, I'm talking of a German automaker, very well-known name in the Indian market and otherwise in the world as well. They are very well known for their engine and their wiring systems in the cars. And they are now pretty much on a journey from past 1 year to start digitalizing the electric vehicles in such a manner that each time a vehicle is on the road, they are able to sense the driver pattern, and they are able to also modify and optimize the batteries, because we are talking about electric vehicles here, and pass on that data back to the manufacturing facility wherein they can lay down the infrastructure for making batteries available. Now, as you think about this whole data movement from an asset such as car, that could be your Mahindra E2O, or that could be your any two-wheeler as well, like Aster, this whole data movement from an endpoint back to a facility where it gets stored, processed, understood, and given back to the consumer in a form that makes sense at a scale where I'm talking about Southeast Asia or Europe or India at least. We're talking of a huge facility here. And therefore, these are the digital native or the platform businesses who now have started considering the mixed hyperscaled version of the data centers, wherein they have more vertical scaling capability than a horizontal scaling capability. And one of the reasons to think so is they all believe that horizontal scaling capability is something which they all can invest, can build by themselves, but the ancillary stuff which comes along with it is not something which they think is core to their business, and they look up to the multiple DC providers who can specifically co-invest, co-create, and co-locate with them in order to provide specifically the vertical scaling capabilities. Couple of more points as I think about, and I'm sure you would all be aware about it, that three, four very solid trends, what we have seen already in 2020, no matter how the year is going by, but investments and thoughts around technology investments, they continue to still occupy the major part of a conversation, either with the board or with the promoters or with the CEOs of the firm. And some of the very pertinent trends which A comes into picture. Let me start with something which people don't often talk about is sensitivity to the carbon footprint. If you come to think about it, as we build larger data centers, as we build more and more processing facilities, one of the key questions which is being asked not only by the clients, but anybody who would want to consume the cloud power on from any DC provider is their own contribution to the carbon footprint. Now, this particular trend at least has forced many big players, for example, Microsoft or the Googles and of the world, or even IBM of the world, to start thinking about what what kind of tech interventions, be it around the usage of the water, be it around usage of the wind. I'm talking about the alternative sources of energy, especially on the renewable source of energy, can be deployed so that the total cost of a building a data center, whether it's a facility or it is just simply about hosting more and more machines, can be lower, and therefore coming to a point where we reach to a costing model with our customers, wherein we don't talk anymore the facility, we don't talk about anymore the UIs or the racks, but we simply talk data center as a service. Although data center as a service has been a term which has been there from past couple of years, but in truest sense of as a service, still DC as a world has a lot to achieve. And one of the significant figure which would contribute to make it as a service really, really viable, is the sensitivity towards what these DCs are contributing back to the environment, and how much clients who are subscribing to these DCs are party to the same contribution. Very quick one. Second, what we're also hearing a lot around the availability of the talent, especially when you think about smart data centers or hyperscale data centers, or the data centers which are purely built for meeting the demand of growing data, or especially the online demand, so to say, or any AI-enabled businesses. So one of the difficulty which seems to be there pretty much in the market, that you divide the talent into two. One is keeping the lights on, which is your typically IT support services, 24 by 7 monitoring, service management, so on and so forth. But the second is, if the DCs are becoming smarter, then it's only the DC provider who has that talent. But tomorrow, if I'm one of the guy who would want to be co-investing, co-building with my DC vendor partner, would I also have an access to the talent, which A can appreciate what needs to be done, what language needs to be spoken, and not only that, but also find out the applicability of variety of technologies into the specific use cases for which the investment into data center makes sense. And if I can draw a very, very, very immediate parallel, this is a very similar case what we see in digital world also, wherein the biggies who can invest more, who can pay more, tend to hoard the talent within their own companies, and leaving most of the small time startups or the early stage startups, or even the folks who have been there in the market, in the business from past 100 years, but do not necessarily understand technology, and therefore they want to bring these people on board, but either they can't afford them, and if they can afford them, they can't hold them longer because they do not have a very forward-looking either organization culture or even the ways of working. The last two from my side, before I hand over back to Rahul, is we all understand that edge computing has been there. We have heard about it, we've spoken about it. But if any one of you have been in the IT services as a domain, you would have heard a very commonly used term, shift left. Now, if I were to use the same word here, it's pretty much the same phenomena wherein the demand is now moving towards bringing the stuff closer where data resides. Now, very simple reasons, people appreciate and understand that you need not to move the data too much. And if you do not move the data too much, then obviously your concerns around data being at rest, data being in transit, security, encryption, and general infrastructure costs around the movement and the processing comes down. More and more you think about it, the one of the thing which becomes reality is the DC itself would now be decomposed, or would be more and more decomposed, um, and and somewhere there is a thought emerging that as we think about the larger tech parks, or we think about the larger metros or working facilities, could there be a DC by design which could be edge in nature within that premise? Now, what does it do? It is very much simple as if you are giving a clubhouse by design, you are giving a playing facility by design. So, by doing similar stuff, can you put an edge computing DC by design into these big tech parks, big cities, or big processing facilities? Those could be your large industrial parks, or could be large warehouses, so on and so forth. So we would see a lot of decomposition of the large DCs into the edge, more and more, just because the demand is going to be increasing. The last one, which I say, think about adaptive technologies, and this is a very broad term, but what I really want to convey under this heading is, think about your monitoring, your support services, which are normally bundled along with a DC package. So these need to be more adaptive. And one classic example is, and we can talk about, we all understand how Azure works, how AWS works. Most what goes in is pretty adaptive in nature. Now, the idea is, can you borrow that, and through the AI enabled powered packages, can your keeping the lights on or your ops work, can it just become human free, wherein you have an intelligent monitoring and intelligent supporting services as well, wherein I do not invest in what I can really make the machine do. However, on the security piece, can the security be more adaptive, wherein I not only have very high alert mechanisms, which are a bit more than what every DC has been having from past many years, but so much so, can there be a meshed network of multiple DCs together, wherein the alerts or the security alert can either be shared with the OEMs, could be Dell, could be HP, could be IBM, and about the devices, the actual hardware which is being installed within those DCs, and could there be an open network where these security can be shared, can be made visible, by which the endpoints deployed within these DCs can adapt on the go. So, and there are multi more trends as well. But I believe from what we have been hearing, what we have been talking with our clients, especially in these three sectors in 2019, 2020, these four are the ones which have been sharing most of the time during a conversation and interest area for most of the takes, especially in technology. So that's what I have to share with you. And I look forward for answering any questions or even discussions as we move forward. Again, thank you very much, Seema, Rahul, everybody else for this opportunity. If I have gone beyond my time, I apologize. And with that, I give back to you, Rahul.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
Abhinav,
much,
for
Abhinav. Thanks a lot and for a very perfect start. So thank you very much. Actually, you made my life very simple. Probably the first 10 slides, uh, you have covered most of it. So we could, kind of fast track that whole stuff. Rahul, will you be able to change the slides for me?
Yeah, you could go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much. Welcome to all of you, and thanks for being your presence in the afternoon today. I'm Seema. I head India and Global Business and also Solution Engineering. I come with a strong 20-year systems engineering background. So that's about me. I'll quickly do some amount of context and then look at some of the massive growth parameters, then talk about really how the adoption and what kind of data centers you look for in the future and what are we doing about it, right? And I'll look forward to a lot of questions from you all. Okay, next slide, please. I think it's transitioning slowly, so I'm going to go ahead. So there are a couple of things, right, in terms of India data center revolution. So what is really fueling this revolution? I think the largest amount, the biggest fuel to this whole data center piece has been our adoption with Wi-Fi, with wireless, internet, mobile, digital, retail. I think all this has contributed a big time into propelling a lot of need for stable, large, and big data centers, right? Payments have been on a rapid growth, like digital payments. OTT market has been dominating, and it's been on a growth, on a massive CAGR growth. The adoption of mobile phones right across the country has been probably staggering numbers. Retail has been a big success to a great extent in India, and that's been propelling a lot of growth in the data center space. Retail, if you look at even NetMagic, one of the biggest portfolios that we have is that of retail and digital retail kind of or a cloud native customers, right? A policy play has also created a massive change in the data center landscape, which was not there before, right? Country did not mandate that the data has to be stored. Sensitive and critical data needs to reside within the country, and there has been, I think there's also enough confusion around that, which has benefited people like us, because a lot of businesses have in the benefit of doubt said, okay, we will kind of have it within the country, and you will see a massive amount of FSI, large foreign banks, international global customers have decided to move a substantial amount of India-related data back into India, and that has actually been one of them, which has contributed to a very big growth last year, right? And also it continues this year too. India's journey across the data center has been in several stages. So if you see, we had a .com and other things, initial enterprise applications, which is traditional applications, which has been around in 2000, 2002, leading to very small, you can call it as ISP, ASP kind of data centers, right? Small, not really traditional data centers. Then, of course, 2002 to 2011 saw a lot of outsourcing, and that led to a small, unconventional data centers. But 2011 onwards, I think this became a very organized market. And if you see cloud and now the emergence of hyperscalers has actually redefined the whole data center space. So our whole investments and our roadmap to the data center has been to align to both of this, which is the digital, the cloud, the government initiatives, and also the hyperscale demand, right? So India is anyway poised for a very, very big growth. So I'm not the person who should be talking a lot about it, but I'll talk just about the data center growth and the capacity growth per se, which will be quite, interesting numbers. Currently, 2019, across the country in India, we are operating at almost 750 megawatt of total load and about 350 megawatt of IT load. This is expected to double by 2024, but I think it will double much before 2024. I will talk about a few things what we are doing, and you'll get a good idea that this is going to double much ahead of time. And I don't think it's going to take 2024 per se. So basically, in terms of customers and adoption, it has been across cloud native, enterprise, government, and hyperscalers. And as rightly, Abhinav pointed out, we have also been designing, automating, certifying, and the technology-wise in terms of data center aligned to these four pillars of growth, which we have seen in the data center space. Right, so largely cloud comes from SaaS, PaaS, and all the infrastructure as a service. And if you look at the BI and AI and machine learning has been driving from the IoT and the other space. Digital transformations have been propelling a whole lot of growth around this area. There has been a very aggressive rollout of 5G, and actually Abhinav touched upon it. 5G is definitely going to change the landscape from a very core-oriented data center country to both core and edge. India as such has not been focused so much on developing edge data centers, but that will become very important. And even it will be driven by the OTT demand too, because you have to actually move the content as close as possible to the consumer, and you wouldn't really want to have everything in the core. So we have been very focused on building large core facilities. Even at NTT, we consider now the next set of evaluations that we will do is for both, that is to expand our core and also to have effective edge data center mapped to the core so that we can support both the edge requirement and the core. So you will have more POPs coming in, you will have more of content driven, which needs to, we'll have more and more of IoT driving of edge requirement as 5G gets rolled out more and across the country. So these are very important things that determine how you design and how do you really choose the locations for your data center. Like the core locations will continue to be at Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, perhaps even Delhi, right? And if you look at the edge locations, they'll be at the tier 2 cities like Pune, Kochi, Gurgaon, Hyderabad, maybe even Kolkata, Jaipur, some parts of north like Noida. Noida could be a very good both a core and the edge location, or Gurgaon could be a good edge location. So we are evaluating a whole lot of stuff, right? I'm at slide number 11, Rahul, just in case you're wondering where I am, right? I'm at slide 11. So next slide, please. Some of the key considerations that we do in choosing our locations for the data center. The first thing is for the core, we would definitely look at a very reliable kind of power, good fiber paths. We also need a lot of skilled resources. So these are some of the considerations. We have energy efficiency is one of the very important thing. I think Abhinav drove it very well in his message. Hybrid power is now, wheeling hybrid power has become very important. So if you see all our new generation data centers, we have actually looked at hybrid, and we have combined wind, solar, water, and also the traditional power, all of them into one and into a hybrid, and leverage that as much as possible to reduce our carbon footprint and also to increase our efficiencies. For us, to some extent, carrier neutrality is very important, and I'm sure you'll all start realizing in some time from now, as 5G gets rolled out more and more, your consumer pattern will kind of flip and change a little bit. You will require more and more peering, so it's very important to actually choose locations not just close to the consumer, but also those which will give you a great peering ability. If you don't have that, again, edge will not serve its purpose, right? So it's very important. So that's another consideration that we look at, and overall our ability to or build and operate it, right? Next slide, please. Slide 15, slide 16. So I'll just go into what NTT is doing, and this is just overall in terms of data center. But then I want to really talk a little bit about what we are doing, what we are bringing to market, and what is our roadmap as far as the data center is concerned. First thing is we have consolidated our group companies across the globe, which is important because we were going to market with different names under the same umbrella. And I think to some extent we were not cross leveraging each other's strength, especially Dimension Data and NTT-Netmagic in India, Raging Wire in US, or eShelter in Europe. So what we have done is we have brought all these together under one single umbrella called NTT Limited, which is outside, which is global except for Japan, excluding Japan. So every other country where these operate, they operate under the umbrella and brand name of NTT Limited. So it's simple and it's easy, one single brand. We combine all the power of services that we can actually take to market and serve our clientele. 40,000 plus employees across. We have a good $12 billion in terms of revenues, and we look at doubling it, in every 2 or 3 years or whatever is the goal. The idea is to bring these companies together to really deliver a very large value to our end customer, right? Slide number 17. So this company brings expanded capability. We have a scale and reach which is much larger, not just restricted to India per se in terms of data centers. So if you see our global clientele, leverage on our global contracts, because we look at our data centers as 200 plus and not the 9 or 10 in India, right? So we have a full stack of services, starting from data center to cloud, to hybrid cloud, to managed services, to security services, and also like the third party, like network and SD-WAN. So it gives you a whole host of, and we have a lot of vertical practices as well. So it gives you a much better power to go to market together. Very improved clientele experience. We co-innovate, as rightly Abhinav said, rather than doing it in silos, and a very strong brand value to customer, which is important, right? Slide number 18. This actually shows NTT-Netmagic's presence in India. So we are present in, our data centers are present in all major cities, which is Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, and Noida. We have 1 in Noida, we have 6 in Mumbai, we have 2 in Chennai, and we have 2 currently in Bangalore. Chennai, we have 1 and 1 extension. We are coming up with a new data center in Chennai, which will be ready sometime in 2022, early 2022, to host the cable. Actually, there's an undersea cable that is coming all the way from, so that's going to be NTT cable, the ocean cable that will land, it's called MIST, Myanmar, India, Singapore Transit Cable, that will land in Chennai and go all the way up to Bombay. So that's the first time that you have this route of Chennai to Bombay. Otherwise, the cable used to land either from Middle East or from Europe onto Mumbai, and from Malaysia or Singapore onto Chennai. So you have these covered, bringing in more capacity into India from network standpoint, and we will land that cable into a new data center besides what we have. That will be another 20 megawatt data center. Bangalore already has 2 data centers. There's a new data center that's gone live sometime last year, and that is DC3, which is another 20 megawatt data center. We minimum build about 20 to 30 megawatt data centers now, because we designed them for our, both retail and our hyperscale customers. So just the next slide, please, slide number 19. So this talks about our range of products to the market. So we do all flavors of co-location, which is from bulk colo to enterprise, smart transport, and everything, including seating and cabling and customized cabling and fit outs and all that stuff. We are big in terms of private cloud. So we do hyperconverged infrastructures. We do virtual private cloud. Our own flavor of Simply VPC is one of very hottest selling products. We manage all kind of hypervisors. We do hybrid cloud. We have our own public cloud. We work with the other public clouds like Google, AWS, Azure. We don't ignore, because customers actually need the choice, and we try and provide the choice. So many of these hyperscalers are co-located in our own data center. So it's a great advantage if you're hosted. It's very easy actually to do a cross connect onto and burst onto cloud. So that's a big advantage that we bring in. We whole host of our own suite of public cloud services, infrastructure services. We manage everything right from switching, routing, all the way up to the databases, web application servers, all flavors of hypervisors, networks, and also DR as a service is one of the things that we bring in, and we have a very big global RIM practice operating out of Bombay as a global delivery. Our security portfolio is again very wide and large, unlike the other CSPs, because this is something that is very important to NTT. NTT actually owned the net security company and had a separate security practice. We have been, so you have NetMagic Security SOC, you have NTT Security SOC, you also have DD SOC. Many of these cater to different parts of the market, but they all work together. There is also a single global threat that we subscribe to, so that we can actually share a lot of knowledge and cross leverage each other's strengths. So that's a very very large and extremely mature practice that we have. We do limited amount of professional support services, but these are very limited to a few selected like assessments, large transformation services, migration or big consolidation of data centers, or any specific DR, BCP or contingency that we need to really plan for our custom, for our clientele, right? So that's something that we do. Last 2 years back in 2018, we did get our network license. We don't lay our own fiber, but we do ride on Tata, Sufi, and Airtel, and all of them. There is a carrier relationship that NTT enjoys, because all these providers do use the global IP backbone of NTT across Pacific. So they do have this, they can leverage each other. In India, we don't really sell it as a network. We actually do it as managed network. So it helps customers to look at a single point or a single neck to choke in terms of network and network solutions. So it's optimized managed networks. That is what we provide, with a much higher SLA than what you would get from the individual providers. We are also very large on Class A ISPs. So we provide one of the best quality internet. All our data centers are highly rich in carrier neutral fiber. We blend a lot of bandwidth, and we provide some really good quality bandwidth and last mile connectivity to our client. Right. This is slide number 19. Request you to go to slide 20, please. This gives you a snapshot of our data centers across the country, which is like Bombay has 5 functional right now. And as we speak, on the 1st of August, we are launching our 6th which is DC7. We actually shut down DC1, and so you see DC2, DC3, DC4, 5, 6, and 7, right? So, and you also see that the DCs, are growing bigger in size from 5 onwards, because from 5 onwards it's post NTT acquisition. So there's a better vision, there's roadmap, there is technology, resources, and most important is capital, right? So these are highly capital intensive, and access to capital is very important to build and manage data center. So current capacity that we operate is about 1.2 million square feet of white space and about 108 megawatt of power. And we are doubling this with 5 more new data center addition, 2 in Chandivali campus, which is DC7, which will go live on 1st August 2020, and DC8, which will go live on 1st October or around first week of October 2021. And 2 data centers in New Bombay, which is Mape EL25 lot, where we will have 80 megawatt of 2 more data centers. Then there is 1 in Chennai. We are adding 1 in Chennai. So the total footprint by end of October 2022 will be about 3 million square feet of white space and about 250 megawatt of power. So that will be one of the largest providers for the country, at least in India. So some of the highlights of our data center in terms of features. Can you move to the next slide, please? 21. We have highly carrier neutral, giving you a big peering capacity and capability. 9 data centers currently operational, 10th one going live in August, and 4 more going live next year. Facilities all operate with N+N or N+1 in terms of redundancy levels, multiple levels of security. We have a recorded uptime of 99.39. It's almost like 100%. We haven't seen any downtime despite certain natural disasters, and including pandemic time down. We have ensured that our data centers are fully operational with absolutely uninterrupted. We have managed to maintain the critical staff required, operational people required throughout this pandemic, and we haven't seen any kind of interruption to any of our customers, whether retail, commercial, or hyperscalers, in any of our facilities, right? 24/7 in terms of our NOC, our security, so SOC operations, both at all the locations. Next slide, please. 22. We build on a very, very intelligent infrastructures for our data center, which is very important, both in terms of temperature, chillers, alarm systems, multi-level of fire alarm systems, electrical SLDs. We do a bit of good fuel management as much as possible. We do contract with both the bulk and the retailers to make sure that we are never short of fuel on site. All our facilities are like 48 hours of backup on fuel minimum. Actually, that's on full operational capacity, full operational power. But most of the data centers do not really operate on full power. They might be a little lower. So you will find that we have a much higher availability window in case of outages. Energy conservation, better PUE, hybrid, hybrid, utility and power. 24-hour monitoring. So we do all of it, and all of this are integrated into a single dashboard, both for ourselves and for our customers. 23, please. Slide 23. This just quickly gives you what our existing facilities are and how we are doubling every 2.5 years in terms of our data center. So the minimum build that we do now is about 300,000 square feet and about 30 megawatt of power. The current Chandivali campus is about 100 megawatt of power already, and we are looking at expanding that to 150. 24, slide number 24, please. We also, our emphasis is on all kind of essential certification to assure our customers of highest quality of service as far as the DCs are concerned, right? So ISO in terms of 9,000, 20,000, 22,301 from the DR and BCP perspective, and 27,001 information security management is all certified. We are also CSA Star certified. We are MITRE certified data center. We are probably the only ones who are MITRE, both VR and security certified in terms of data center for government. PCI DSS, and we are a TIA 942 certified. We really don't do uptime, we do one of them. So for us, it is more of a TIA 942, which is a global standard that's followed by NTT. We're also Datacenter certified. That's the NTT's global standard for its data center, which is even more rigorous, the rigor-wise more rigorous than the TIA or uptime would define. Just a quick takeaways for you, and I hope I've been able to do whatever I had to do in like 15 minutes. I want to allow some time for you for question answers. Last 5 years we have doubled, and we expect to double in like next 2 years, and not 4 years really, which we are doing. More of hyperscalers, so you see high densities, you don't have to retrofit anything, it almost comes as part of the definition. A lot of policy measures in India has driven our growth. 5G and mobility, we are actually looking, it's propelling adoption, so we are looking at HDC as a roadmap too, in addition to our core. We do focus on everything, which is energy, in terms of operational cost, our SLAs, our, what do you call, fiber and connectivity, global standards, the best, and we want to be leaders as far as the data center is concerned. We don't want to be second to anyone else, and that is what is NTT's vision too, and we kind of align with that and make sure that we maintain the best of the facilities for our clientele, right? So thank you very much with this. I really appreciate all your time and your patience. I look forward to questions. Over to Rahul.
Would request you all to post your questions and we would take them. We'll just give them a minute for questions to come in while we take some polls also. Seema, there's a question coming. In terms of compliance, while evaluating vendors, what would NetMagic be able to help take care of?
I didn't quite get the question, but let me try and.
I'll just rephrase it for you. In terms of security and compliance, what would be the evaluation parameters and how NetMagic could take care of that?
Oh, okay, great, thank you. Yeah, they are very important, both of them, both in terms of compliance. So that's the reason why I put up the certification slide. So there's a bunch of certifications we already do to assure our customers that we fall into a certain, into a certain bucket of standards, right? Whether it is our design specs through our TIA 942 or our, our compliance certifications through our ISO and PCI DSS for vertical industry, or SOC 1, SOC 2 for our, our BFSI customers. So we cover all of that. We also have our own practice of cyber SOC in the country to, augment it. We have our physical data center security of 6 layers or 6 security layers, and now we are enhancing it as we see, as we see some newer vulnerabilities. So these are something that we do, and constantly we evaluate ourselves vis-a-vis the global players like either Equinix or DRT. And if you look around the world, these are the 3 leaders: NTT, Equinix, and DRT. So we are constantly making those changes, and they're not local; they're always global as far as NTT is concerned. Whatever is done across the globe is also rolled out in India.
Thank you. The next question is, would want to know a little more about business continuity services.
So good question. Actually, as far as the data center is concerned, it's very important. One, of course, is the 23,201, certification, which defines the BCP. So you only get certified if you have a proper BCP. So that's one. The second thing is our BCP itself. We have been able to define across multiple locations. Like, for example, Bombay failing over to Bangalore because Bangalore is in seismic zone 2. And Chennai could fail over to either Bombay or to Bangalore. So we maintain multiple copies of our BMS. We have a central control system and also federated. So just in case if there is a failure of one, it does not hamper or it does not impact data center and its security and its operation, right? So that both in terms of people, in terms of systems and processes, all of them are defined in both federated and centralized, so giving you the highest availability definition.
Next question is, do you permit the clients to have the dedicated MUX of different telecom service providers?
No, actually, you need not run different contracts at all. All contract can be innovated to NetMagic, and we can manage a centralized contract. You may want to bring in your own network, but all the fibers are already laid. They're all available, so you don't need to really do that. If you already have it, then they will just plug it into our MMR room and give you the capacity. But if you don't, and if you want us to manage a certain level of SLA for your network, then you don't have to do those separate contracts. You can just novate all of them to NetMagic as a managed network service, which we do for most of our co-location clientele. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, there's a follow-up question to the same. We being from a PSU bank, our policy do not provide to have shared infra for telecom.
Shared infra for telecom. Actually, in the MMR room, it is not shared at all. I don't know why do we think it is shared infra for telecom. All telecom providers bring in their own capacity fiber through a conduit that we have laid so that people don't have to dig. Huge capacity conduits are already laid. You just bring the fiber, so they are all distinct capacities. Secondly, there is an MMR room which is again dedicated to each of those providers, that is not shared, and from there you can bring in your own network to your rack, which is through a cross connect, either fiber or Ethernet, which is not shared. So I don't know where the sharing or is coming into picture. The only form of sharing, or rather, again, that can be secured, right? That could be from an blended internet standpoint, but we give you secured blended internet, so that also can be secured. So there is no real sharing as such. It's exclusive.
The next question is, do you have a strategy or approach for migrating from existing client DC to your DC?
Yeah, we do. We do offer two kinds. One is just this lift and shift. Another one is a complete migration, which is like study the existing landscape, and if required, you may also want to optimize a few things because we are very good at it. And it's a good opportunity when you migrate. You can actually optimize the number of racks, the way you organize the racks, the way you organize your cabling, your interact, or your structured. So all these form as a part of a migration consulting service, and we take a whole thing as a single project and execute it, because we ourselves have migrated data centers. We have consolidated, we have migrated, so there's a great deal of learning that we have had. So we try and extend that to our customers. We have already done that for a lot of our customers who have moved their data centers from on-prem onto our facility with a very minimum downtime.
There's a follow-up question. What are the best practices for migration?
So there's a whole bunch of them, but I think a few which are very important ones for migration is to ensure that you have to define your window for migration, which is one of the very important best practices. Usually that defines what you really have to have it ready at both the ends. How much window do you have? So that is one. And second is your backup, which is an important aspect of the migration. Many of our customers don't do it. They just compromise, which you should not have a proper backup policy in place at before and after migration. And the third is your whole, one of the best practice for migration is to ensure that you optimize. Don't just take lift and shift. You may do it if you have a very small window, or if you have already optimized. Otherwise, you should look at optimizing, because it's a great opportunity when you migrate. And migration should always be done by the experts who actually are good at data center migration. And it's not a trivial thing that you just lift, plug and play, and it's not as simple as that. So your network optimization, your rack optimization, your backup, and your DR testing, and of course your actual migration, your whole structured cabling. All these are very important aspect of at least our migration. What do you call checklist, and we rigorously follow this. And it's a good thing to do. You will find you're actually operating at a better efficiency than what you were doing before. People even don't assess on what needs to go on fiber, what needs to go on Ethernet. And when we do migration, we save a whole host of costs for customer, because we can easily define that to a proper structured switching system.
Right. One last question we have. Is there any SLA defined for high availability issues?
Yeah, data centers per se has a 5.9 as a contracted, or a 6.9 as a contracted, 99.49 as a contracted SLA. But over and above that, there could be a very customized SLA that we can deliver. See, many of the customers, depending on their profile, we have a whole host of customized SLAs, which could be, like a dedicated DGs, or SLAs around maintenance, around battery maintenance, around fuel recycling. So those are all something over and above your data center SLA. But yes, we do a lot of customized SLAs depending on profile of customer. If a customer takes like out of my 20 megawatt, if he contracts 10 megawatt, which is like almost a half data center, close to about say 2,000 racks, then the whole definition of SLA would be different from what you would do for a retail customer who would not be bothered about anything other than just saying, okay, my rack and power has to be up and working for like 6 nines.
Right. I see no more questions. Any concluding remarks?
Hello, Rahul.
Yeah, we have no other questions. Any concluding remarks from your end?
Oh, no, nothing much. Thank you so much. It was really good interacting with the audience through indirectly. I thank all of them for their presence, and thanks to Prasenjit, Kshitij, the entire organizing committee, Rahul, you, and of course, Abhinav, for such a good start. Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you, and thanks to all my audience.
Thank you, Ms. Seema, for the insightful session and sharing the information with us. Hope the information has helped all of us, and we would share the link to the recorded version for your recap. And in case you do need anything, you could reach out to us and we would assist you with the same. Thank you all. Thank you. Have a good day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. Bye-bye.